This is a podcast about our lived experience, which unfortunately includes infant death and subsequent mental health struggles. Please take good care of yourself and only listen if this content feels safe for you right now. We'll still be here when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Judith.
And I'm Alina. We are internet friends turned real-life friends who both experienced the tragic loss of our sons to sudden infant death syndrome in winter of 2021.
In the year after Aiden died, my husband and I both became unemployed. My parents divorced, and we had to move 5 times for various reasons.
And as for me, just a few weeks before my son Quinn died, my then husband had come out to me as a transgender woman and were subsequently divorcing.
It's been a lot.
It's been a lot.
But as long as we're living, we will love our sons deeply and work to make sure that we live a life that makes them proud.
Welcome to As Long As I'm Living podcast.
We're so glad you're here.
Hi, guys. So in today's episode, we are going to answer some questions from you all. We have a lot of questions from, frequently asked questions about us, about our kids, about how we met, all that kind of stuff. And so we're going to do an episode for you today answering those questions that maybe you have had yourself. We asked on Instagram for questions. So if you don't follow us on Instagram, you absolutely should, because we post a lot of stuff over there. Before we get into that, we are actually going to answer a question that nobody asked, but that we think you guys might wonder. So take it away, Judith.
The question that I wanted to address is a question that I think people think in their heads, but no one specifically asked, but I know that they're thinking it, which is on social media. I've seen it the most in TikTok, but I suspect all social media has an component, for sure Facebook plays, the Facebook groups do, of like these what would you call them?
Mommy wars.
That's what they are? Mommy wars?
Where it's like people are judging other people's parenting choices.
Yes. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Mommy wars?
The mommy wars, yeah.
They're not in a war, they're in a war with other mommies?
Yeah.
Okay. So like a mommy war.
Yes, it's stupid.
A mommy war would be like, you're breastfeeding, you should be bottle feeding.
Yes, that's a mommy war.
Okay. So I'm so glad you knew the term. Okay. I was going to be like a mommy Karen or something. I didn't know what it was.
They are like mommy Karens. That's a good way to put it.
Okay. So when you're on social media and people show, this happens all the time. They're like, this is my baby, mom knows best. And then they'll have a picture of their baby in a bassinet that's not a safe sleep practice.
Mm-hmm.
Or they'll be like, don't try and shame me. I co-sleep and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's talking about co-sleeping. It's pictures of unsafe sleep practices, people having blankets. What else have you seen? I see a lot of like blankets.
I mean, I was before Quinn was born, we did a parenting class and there was a woman who was like really gung-ho about buying a hammock for her infant to sleep in. And like at the time we were like, this bitch is crazy. I bet her baby's still alive.
Or stomach, and I, by the way, know a lot of crunchy moms who are not crunchy. No, I know a lot of moms who are not crunchy, but stomach sleep.
Yes, stomach sleeping for sure.
Like they'll say in the TikTok, they'll be like with a dance, stomach sleeping, yes, and they'll like be shooting towards the yes. And then it'll say in the chat, you'll see these mommy wars saying, that's not safe. Please don't do that. SIDS risk. And then you'll see like a variety of people yelling. And then you'll see people on the other side being like, I slept with my baby for 20 years and everyone's fine. Like.
Don't tell me how to parent.
Don't tell me how to parent. I know mom knows best. Okay. Things like that. So I guess the question that I ask myself and I imagine other people asking is like, how does that feel as someone who has lost their child to SIDS to see other people very proudly showing off their non-safe sleep habits?
Yeah. I think our answer is going to surprise people.
I think our answer is going to surprise people.
Yeah.
First of all, have you ever thought about this?
Absolutely. Of course I have.
You thought about it?
Yeah.
Because you've seen them too.
I've seen them too. Yeah, they're all over the place.
They're all over the place.
Yeah.
Okay, so who's going to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay, go first.
So I think my first thought is I am just not somebody who would hop in the comments on something and say that anyway. So I'll preface it by saying that. That's just not my vibe. I'm like, no. I personally, so the circumstances of Quinn's death, there was nothing that we could have done. He was alone in his crib on his back using a pacifier. He was breastfed. He was, safe in a very safe sleep environment, and he still died. So I think that informs my feelings on this, which are essentially parents can do whatever they want. Like, I'm not going to go out there and be like, you shouldn't do that. Your son could die. My son died. Like, because to me, it's like, how can I say that to somebody because my son died when I did all the right stuff? And like, yes, I do have a little bit of judgment for people who think just because they did something, that means it's safe. Like I do think it's important that parents recognize they are accepting unnecessary risk if they choose to have their baby stomach sleep, or if they put blankets in the crib with the baby that's less than 1 year old, or any of those things. But I also don't care. Like, I don't want to say I don't care. Like, I would care if their baby died, but I don't care. Like, do whatever you want.
I feel the exact same way. And
Yeah.
I think it's different than something else that I want to bring up. I feel the same way. I feel like if you're accepting risk. We all take on risk.
Yep.
You're taking on a higher risk than I would feel comfortable with. But I don't think that in the comments, me shouting, that's a SIDS risk, I don't think it matters, because you could do all the right things and your baby could still die of SIDS. So I just don't think shouting from the rooftops matters, as opposed to, and I know that this is the case, I have friends that have lost their children to stillbirth, and their response to their death is totally different.
Yeah.
Which I find interesting also. Like the people who I know who've lost their children to stillbirth, they are shouting from the rooftop, do your kick counts. Did you know that after 41 weeks, there's higher rate of stillbirth? Like, they're shouting all these statistics, and they're shouting all this information, and they're trying to educate, whereas I am not. And I guess I feel like it's because I had the information. I didn't need the information louder. And I wonder, like, if somebody said, like, I just didn't know that putting my baby on the stomach was a risk, then I would be like, okay, well, you should know.
Yeah, that's right.
But if you know and you're choosing it, take that risk. The consequences you're paying the consequences.
That's right. And like, I think with the stillbirth thing, it's a little bit, it feels different to me, because I do think there's a dearth of education about that. Like, I did not understand the gravity of kick counts at the end. I did not understand how, I knew there was more risk if you're over, 41 weeks. I did not understand how much more risk. There is a lot more risk. So I think that there is a lack of education there I personally do not feel there is a lack of education about SIDS. That SIDS was very much a part of my vocabulary. We made parenting decisions based on, reducing the risk of SIDS. Like, they talk about it. It's everywhere on every single, like on swaddles. It says like back is best on swaddles, on every swaddle, like it's all over the place. And I think that also, like with SIDS, especially for you and me, there was nothing we could do. Like with some of the stillbirths that you and I know in particular, some of the moms who lost babies to stillbirth, like there was maybe something that they could have done. And I think that also maybe makes them feel differently about it than we do.
Even now, like a lot of times, if I'm in a conversation with somebody who's pregnant, this has happened to me so many times. If I'm in a conversation with someone who's pregnant or has a young baby at home, and they ask me, how did your son die? I will say, I don't want to tell you. I said, I'm happy to tell you if you want to know, but I think it's going to scare you, and I'm not sure you need to know.
Yes.
Is that something you feel also?
Yes. I feel almost like, because Quinn's death was so just completely random and unpreventable, that I don't feel the need to do education about it, just because it's like, there's literally nothing anybody can do to prevent what happened to my son from happening to their child.
It's kind of like I imagine like lightning striking.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine if you like went on TikTok and you're like, make sure you wear your tennis shoes every day, so you're wearing rubber shoes when you get struck by lightning? Like, it would be like, why would you do that? It would just, why would you do that? Like, sure, there's some value in it, but it's like so freakishly random. Like, I can't imagine being on TikTok and scrolling through and be like, be Prepare for when lightning strikes.
Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to the listener questions. Here we go. First question. Why does Judith move so much?
I was really surprised when we got this question because I actually think it's such a logical question that I don't understand why I never explained it. Like, it's such a fair question. Okay, it's such a fair question with such a non-simple answer, but let me break it down month by month because we moved so many times. So when COVID hit, the day that COVID hit, I became pregnant. Well, I started my period. So that's when the pregnancy began. And my husband was starting a new job right around the time when Aiden was born. And it was supposed to be a job that was going to be really stressful, really busy. So I thought it would make most sense for us to move to California where my parents were. And I thought because COVID is going to be bad in the winter, it just makes sense to be in a warm location. So the first move that we made was from St. Louis, Missouri to Los Angeles, California. And we had an apartment there. The apartment was set up to be month to month. So it was going to be a perfect situation since we didn't know when we were leaving Los Angeles. We were just supposed to move one time. That was the point. The point was just to move one time from St. Louis to Los Angeles and then from Los Angeles to New York City where my husband's job was based out of, TBD when. But then Aiden died. So when Aiden died, we couldn't live in that apartment anymore because it was too sad for me. So we moved into my parents' house. And we thought that was just going to be for a couple of months. But then my husband lost his job. And so we had no income.
And you had no reason to move to New York anymore.
And we had no reason to move to New York anymore because he didn't need his job. And I quit my job before. So there was nowhere to go. So we just stayed at my parents. And that would have worked for a long time. That wasn't really a problem, except that they were getting divorced. And they were kind of like the last legs of a 38-year marriage. And whatever you're imagining in your head the house to feel like, it was like that. And I would say like the combined stress and tension of losing a child, being jobless. And
let me tell you guys. So Judith used to tell her whole family at the dinner table about my dating exploits because they needed something to talk about.
And it was such a successful strategy because otherwise just the dinner table got tense every night. And so Alina's dating was like such a good topic to discuss. So thank you for providing that. And honestly, I'm so glad we're not still living there now because you're dating only one person and it would have been horrible for our family. But anyway, the point is.
All right. So hang on. Now you've moved a lot more. Explain why.
Okay, we left my parents' house, but we didn't have anywhere to go. So we just went to a short-term rental in Los Angeles. We thought for sure by December we would know where we were going, but we didn't. So we moved to another short-term rental. We thought for sure by January we would know where we were going, but we didn't. So we got into another short-term rental. And then, so we moved, and then we moved eventually here. So it ended up being 5 times in a year because we didn't have any direction
or any jobs.
We had no jobs and divorcing parents. And I didn't know what else to do. And we had no money coming in and it was just, it was really hard.
Very stressful.
It was so hard. It was so bad. Okay, but now we live somewhere, and I just want to add this in that it's so cute. My husband says to me, I love painting the walls of this house because even though I hate painting, it means we're going to be here for longer than 6 months.
Oh, that's
so
sweet.
Every time we go to IKEA, he's so happy because it just means we're going to live here for longer than a day. Okay, so that's why I keep moving. Next question.
All right, next question. How is dating going, Alina? Dating stories?
How's it going?
So in the first couple episodes, I really thought that this is going to sound silly, but I thought my storyline on this podcast, obviously like storyline's a weird word for it because it's my life, but I thought that my storyline on this podcast would be like dating and like, showing people what it's like to date as a bereaved mom and like all this stuff. And then right as we started this podcast, I started dating somebody and I'm still dating him. So it's been a while. He's great.
You've found someone that's a good fit for you for now.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're not dating. You're dating him.
I am not dating. That's right. I'm dating him. So I have a lot of dating stories, but they all feel so far away. I, at some point, maybe we can have somebody on at some point as a guest to talk about dating as a bereaved mom, and then we can kind of trade war stories. I think that would be a kind of funny episode, but that'll maybe be a future episode.
Okay. You know what? Maybe if I take a week off when I'm having a baby, that'd be a good topic for you to explore.
Oh my God, that's a great idea. That's a really good idea. putting it in our, make a note of that.
On your spreadsheet that I will literally never open.
Oh, I cannot wait.
I will intentionally never open that spreadsheet. I think it's bad for my mental health.
Don't do it. Okay. Next, advice for finding a community or a grieving partner like you guys have.
That is such a sweet question. I think it's easy to find a grieving partner. I think it's hard to find a grieving partner that you align well with.
Yes.
Before Alina, I had been talking to some other people. Some helped me a tremendous amount. Some were just in different stages of our lives. Some we just have different attitudes towards mental health and therapy. And so I think it's really hard to find someone who is in the similar stage of life as we both don't have already having kids. This was our first, a similar death. There's like a lot of different factors. I also made some wonderful friends at the cemetery. So if you're being buried next to someone, you can always reach out to them. Or in a support group, like you could meet, I think support groups, I have my feelings about support groups, but I do think that sometimes you can listen to 6 or 7 people and be like, okay, one of them I think I can be friends with outside of this.
Yeah. And, kind of on that note, like I've made most of my lost friends through my support group, my lost parent friends through my support group. And like, I'll say, I mean, some of them I still text with all the time, but there is just something about like, I think there are definitely people who I like gel with, like their like philosophy on the loss, I feel like is similar to mine. And I think that is really important. Like Judith was saying, like I had someone who were connected for a little bit and she was just exhausting. Like I felt like I wasn't getting anything out of that relationship. Whereas with me and Judith, it's like very much, we're each supporting each other, I would say equally, completely equally.
I also felt like there were some people that I spoke with before and maybe even after that were struggling with different things.
Right.
And so it was hard for me to take on new problems, meaning like if I don't have a challenge in one area, like whatever it was, like let's say guilt, like I don't feel a tremendous amount of guilt, but let's say the person that I'm grieving alongside does feel a tremendous amount of guilt. Sometimes I felt like, oh shoot, maybe I should be worrying about guilt. And then maybe I should be feeling guilty. It's like, you don't want to add more to your grieving plate. So it's kind of like you also need to find someone you get along with, but someone who feels similarly about the death that you do. So you're, if I happen to be really anxious about pregnancy and let's say I'm grieving alongside someone who is just their baby died of a different way. Mm-hmm. And so they don't feel anxious about pregnancy and sudden death. They feel like, okay, my baby had 7 months of long-term illness before he died. Maybe my anxiety would rub off on them in a way that was negative. Mm-hmm. And would make them feel like, oh shoot, now I have to be worried about all these other problems I didn't know I had to be worried about.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to be mindful. I think we should just take a second to say like, it's really hard to find the right person and we're lucky.
We're so lucky. We really are. And honestly, like I'll say, I feel like I'm luckier because I never would have reached out to somebody. I never would have reached out to you. So like, I'm very grateful to you for being the Judith in this relationship and being the extrovert and reaching out.
I think when we hung out the first time, the whole time we were like, this is just crazy. Like, do you just like meet people and become friends with them? And like you said, probably said it 25 times. And I was like, yeah, why is this so weird? I've made so many friends. I made many friends this way. Sure, this is a little weird, but like, yes. You were like, so you just make friends as an adult? And I was like, yeah, I don't know, Alina. I do have friends. I might want to work on that. But.
Oh my goodness. Okay. The next couple are about the podcast. So best and worst thing about having a podcast.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll say I think the best thing, well, some good things about it are I think it's been really helpful for my grief to have a place to grieve every week, like just knowing that I'm going to be grieving, and the connections with other lost parents on our Instagram account has been really great. The worst thing about it, honestly, there's not much bad about it, to be totally honest, but I will say it feels a little funny knowing that strangers know some of the intimate details of my trauma. That's a little bit funny, but also doesn't really bother me, but I would say that's the worst thing.
That part doesn't bother me. I think it's sometimes hard knowing that my words can hurt my family.
Oh.
Times where maybe I'd want to be more honest with the podcast about things going on, but I just feel like I have to temper myself to protect the relationships in my family, because I know the things I say can be hurtful for them. And to me, it feels like the best thing that's come out of it simultaneously is that my family understands me in a new way. And I think that they are better at dealing with my grief because they listen to this podcast. That's very self-serving. I know we have people from Guam listening, and they're probably like, that doesn't help me at all. But I will say I felt really lonely on this journey. So it's been nice to do it with people. And I'm happy that the Guam listeners are here.
The Guam, the Italy, the South Africa,
Colombia, the South Africa, Kenya.
Yeah.
We love having you.
We love it. Dream guests, dream podcast guests. Wait, hang on. Before we even talk about this, I do just want to say I posted some stories, some polls, and you guys are loving the interview episodes. And we are so excited about that because we have so many interview guests like that are not like bucket list guests. We have actual people that we have talked to and are going to be on the podcast. And so there's just a lot of really fun interviews. Fun is maybe the wrong word. This is an infant death podcast, but there's some really good interviews coming and we're excited about them.
We have some really good interviews, and I think that some of them are our dream guests. So dreams come true. So our dream guests, for sure, the top of the list, the queen of the queen, is Megan Devine, the author of It's Okay Not to Be Okay. If she would come on our podcast, I would feel like we've made it in the world. Like at that point, like I think I could stop working. I think I could stop doing everything because I have made it.
That's right. I completely agree. So that for sure, she's like our absolute like queen guest.
What do you think of Sheryl Sandberg? Like, would you want to have
Sheryl Sandberg?
Or Glennon Doyle?
Glennon Doyle. We love her.
Glennon Doyle. She would be great to have on the podcast. A personal one for me would be anyone in my family who absolutely refuses to come on the podcast. So
it's so funny you say that because you would love your family to be on the podcast and they won't do it. I think my family would like to be on the podcast and I'm like, nope.
If my mom or my sister, my brother would do it, but if my mom or my sister came on the podcast, I'd be shocked and I would love to have them on. I think they have a really unique perspective. Okay, but we also have a dream guest that is coming on.
Yeah. Should we announce that one now? Or maybe we should wait.
I don't even know where this is coming out, but whenever this is coming out, we'll just announce it. That we're having Dr. Rick Goldstein, the head of the Roberts Program, SIDS research based out of Children's Hospital and Harvard, coming on in March.
We are so excited.
So excited.
Because so I know like not all of you have lost a baby to SIDS. And even though some of you who have maybe don't know him, but he is, first of all, he's like one of the top researchers in this field. So he is a wealth of knowledge about that subject. But the thing that we're really excited about having him on is for you guys to just hear what he has to say about bereavement, about bereaved parents. He is one of the kindest, most compassionate people that I have encountered on this journey. He is an absolutely wonderful human being, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear what he has to say.
I'm like nervous to interview him.
Me too.
Like I want to like prep our questions so we get it right.
Yeah.
I think so highly of him, and I wish I knew him on a personal level.
Yeah. And I want to make sure we prep because his time is so valuable. I want to be really efficient with our questions.
So we are very excited to have him. But we have a few others.
Okay.
As well.
Favorite episodes that you guys have done. So my favorite episode by far is Alina's Bad Day. I think that's the best episode we've done. Accidentally.
I don't like have a best episode.
I think that's my favorite one. I think it's
I like that one too. That was good.
It's the hardest one for me to listen to, but I think it's just exactly what grief sounds like and exactly what supporting someone who's grieving sounds like. I don't know, it's just really comforting to hear you comforting me.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
I don't have a favorite episode, but I really liked the one with my husband.
Yeah.
My husband's a very quiet person, and I cannot tell you, my sister called me after. She's like, I've known him for 10 years. I've never heard him say that many words in sentences ever. She's like, I've never heard him talk that much. In 1 hour, she's like, I never knew he felt that way about anything.
Oh.
He's just a really quiet person, and the fact that he was willing to be so vulnerable, I like to listen to it. I've listened to it a lot of times. I actually find it really comforting.
Speaking of that, what is Aiden's dad's name?
Well, Aiden's dad is a really nice guy, but he's not like 100% like the type of person who wants to have his information plastered over social media because he's really private. So I'm just going to keep it private out of respect for him.
Yeah. Yep.
But you can make up a name. You can make up whatever name you want to make. I don't know.
So if you were wondering what Aiden's dad's name is, you did not miss anything. We have never said it. Well, I did say it on Instagram one time, but then I bleeped it out. So if you saw it in those 5 minutes, then you're lucky.
It's a perfectly ordinary name.
Yeah, it is. Favorite memory of Aiden and Quinn, like you asked Kaylee and Aiden's dad.
I saw someone ask that, and I thought that was so nice.
Yeah. What is your favorite memory of Aiden, or a favorite memory of Aiden?
I don't know if I have a favorite memory, but I think the one that like I always look back on and smile at, how about that? Is like one time the Whitney Houston's I Want to Dance with Somebody came on, and we danced around the room, just me and him, like alone, over and over and over again. Like I kept playing it. And he was just like happy and smiling, and it just like felt full.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah. So I have two that I'll share. One is, I still have not announced that I was on another podcast. Speaking of this memory, I talked about this on a podcast I was a guest on recently called The Silent Why, which you guys should absolutely go listen to. I would be so honored if you take some of your listening time and listen to my interview on that podcast. I'll put the link in the show notes. But a memory that they asked me if I had a favorite memory with Quinn, and I shared, we used to make this sound at each other all the time. It was like this, like in the back of the throat. And like, he would make that sound, and then I would make it back to him, and he would get so excited. It felt like, it seemed like he was like, oh my God, like she understands me and we're having a conversation. Like it seemed as though he was like saying a word, and then I was saying a word back, and he was like so excited about it. And we used to just do it back and forth. I have a video of us making that sound, and it brings me so much. I love watching that video. And then the other thing that I'll share, and one of the things I miss the most, is just looking into his eyes, and him looking right back at me. I miss that so much. So, okay. Related, somebody asked, what were your favorite features about your babies?
I am convinced that Aiden would have had blue eyes. And my favorite thing about Aiden was that he looked like his dad.
I don't know, so much like your husband.
I know. I don't know why I thought he was going to look like me, but I think this baby is going to look like me. But I just thought he was going to look like me, and he came out. He looked just like my husband, and I loved it. I just thought it was so cool. I thought it was so cool. And my husband did not see it at all, but like he had the same like wide set kind of eyes, and he had a lot of mannerisms like my husband, which is crazy because he's a baby, but like it was just like pieces of him that reminded me of my husband. And I just thought it was so cool that I could birth someone who did not look like me.
Yes, I know.
I thought that was so cool.
Yeah. So my favorite feature of Quinn, I mean, his eyes for sure. Like he had really big blue eyes, and I have big blue eyes, and Kaylee has big blue eyes, and we unsurprisingly I gave birth to our child who had big blue eyes. And he was very expressive with his eyes, which I loved. And then I don't know, like this is going to sound so weird, but I also really loved his little butt, his little booty. And it makes me kind of sad because I don't have any pictures of it. That's not like something you take a picture of, but like his little butt, like when he was like on his belly naked, oh my God, it was so cute. Just out of control cute. I mean, baby butts are so cute.
I'm surprised you don't have a picture of that, because I swear you have a picture of everything.
I know, I have so many pictures. Okay. And then how did you choose the names Aiden and Quinn?
I think we spoke about this on Insta story before.
We did, but I think we have a lot of new followers, so we can share it again here.
Do you want to go first?
Sure. So Quinn, we were deciding between a couple names for him. I actually thought for most of my pregnancy that his name was going to be Rory. That was just like a name that I liked a lot. And Kaylee was not sold on it. I mean, she liked it, but she wasn't sold on it. And we had, we put a bunch of names on our refrigerator on Post-its, and we knew he was a boy from like 8 weeks pregnant. So we never really considered girl names at all, which was, made it a little bit easier. We only had to focus on boy names. And the final deciding factor for baby Quinn being named Quinn was that throughout my entire pregnancy, we called him Quill for some reason. And I don't exactly remember how that started. I think it might have been just like a random name we saw in a book, and we were like, that's a weird name, Quill. But so we called him Quill, like, people have names for their baby in utero. And so like we, one of his animals that I associate with him is a hedgehog and all that. And our families were calling him Quill, when he was in utero. And so we wound up naming him Quinn, because his middle name is William after my dad and my brother. And so he's Quinn William, which is like Quill. So we were like, oh, if we still want to call him Quill, we can.
That's cute.
Yeah. So that was kind of the thing that like tipped it over toward Quinn for me, was that. And that was Kaylee's favorite name too, was Quinn. We also liked that it was gender neutral.
Aiden was named after our two grandmothers. My husband's grandmother's name is Adelaide, and my grandmother's name is Nancy. So Aiden's first name was Aiden for Adelaide, and his middle name was Noah for Nancy. And in Jewish tradition, you always name children after deceased members of your family. Mm-hmm. And like there were a bunch of names I liked that we couldn't even consider because it was not named after anyone in particular. And my grandmother died 3 weeks before Aiden died. And so I just really wanted to name this baby
before Aiden was born.
Sorry, my grandmother died 3 weeks before Aiden was born. And I really wanted to name Aiden after her because I was so close with her. So so that's what we did. We named him Aiden Noah. Mm-hmm. And for this next baby, we will not be naming this baby after anyone because I think... I don't know what. I think that the point of naming a baby after someone, the reason people do it is to pass along the attributes that came from those grandparents, or whoever you're naming after. As part of the baby naming, you say like, this person was incredibly kind and patient and warm-hearted, and I hope those things for my baby or whatever it is. But I just feel really strongly that I want like a brand new slate with this baby. So this next baby will be named for no one. Even though her name, I do have a family member with her name, but it doesn't matter. In my head, she's named for literally no one. And if someone asks, I'm going to be like, no. This is a new baby, new name. She's starting a new page. Her grandchildren can name after her, and that'll be good. Yeah. So that's how we named him. And coincidentally, his name in Hebrew means resting in Gan Eden, which is like, I guess, the Garden of Eden, which is where souls go to die. So like, I guess heaven. So his name means resting in heaven, which I did not put together, or else I would not have named that.
Yeah.
At all.
It's a nice name.
But yeah, that wasn't great.
Yeah.
But my rabbi liked to point out to me that that's where souls begin too. True. So his name is also evocative of the beginning of life, and I should not feel like I cursed my baby.
Yeah, I don't. You definitely did not curse your baby.
I know, but I'm superstitious.
I know, and it is a beautiful name, Aiden. All right, and our last question is, what would you do if you had 5 minutes with your babies again?
I loved this question so much. I thought it made me emotional just to think about.
Yeah.
Okay, who's going first?
You can go first. I have to think about it.
Okay, I have this fantasy in my head of where I go on very dark days when I just miss my baby so much. I like close my eyes and I imagine myself like dropping into this hole, and I come out the other side and I walk in the room and it's like a nursery and it's got like white curtains, and I look out and there's like a lake, by the glider, not racing chair. And I just hold him and I just look out at this lake. And I don't think I have anything profound that I'd want to say or anything profound that I want to do. I just would want to hold him for 5 minutes and just feel like for 5 minutes, like I was like a complete person. Like I had all my limbs. Yeah. That's what I want. I just want to feel like peace. That's what I'd want for 5 minutes, to feel peace.
I'm crying. I think I just want to look into his eyes for 5 minutes.
Yeah. I've told you this before, but Ed Sheeran has that song called like Visiting Hours.
Yeah.
And it's about how he wishes that heaven had visiting hours and he could go visit his mom. And I think about that all the time. Like, I really feel like, okay, if he had to die, he had to die. But like, how could it be we're in 2022 and we have not developed a way to have visiting hours with the deceased?
It is. I think
It's
I really
cruel.
don't let myself think about this too much, but it is just so painful to know that literally the rest of my existence, I will never see him again.
Yeah. I would really just like if I could have Sunday mornings for an hour,
Yeah.
I would drive across the world to just have Sunday mornings for 1 hour where we do nothing. And he doesn't even have to get older. Like, it's not like we have to talk.
Yeah,
Well, he could get older and we could talk. He could or he could not. It's up to him. It could be like a prison situation where you go and you have visiting hours and then you're so sad when you leave, but okay, you know where they are. Yeah. And you can love on them.
I mean, I would go into outer space. If I found out that he was in outer space, I would get on a rocket ship today. And for anyone who knows me, I hate space. So that's really saying a lot, but that's how much I miss him. I would go in space.
Sometimes I think about that sometimes, if I'm doing something that's really physically hard, I'll say to myself just imagine Aiden was at the end of this. Of course I would do it. I think I could run a marathon on that energy alone.
Me too.
I could anything that is hard, or sometimes I have to make a really hard phone call. I just imagine okay, if you got through this, you could get to Aiden and then I have the strength to do it.
Okay, so those were all of your questions. We loved answering them. We love hearing from you guys. We love when you send us messages on Instagram. We love when you email us. We really, really, really do. So thank you guys for submitting them. Thank you for following us. And thank you for listening.
And we'll see you soon.
To all of our wonderful new friends, we want to hear from you. Email us at aslongasimlivingpodcast@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at aslongasimlivingpodcast. We'll get back to you as soon as our grieving brains allow. Yay!